Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both.
You woke? Time to get up. Hello and welcome to Thought You're Woke, No Speed Limit podcast. I'm your host, Alvin. I hope you guys are having a terrific evening. The first thing I want you to do is make sure that you like, share, and subscribe as always. Every time you subscribe, every time you share this with other people, you get an opportunity to spread the love and spread my wonderful show around and help me grow. I watched the debate tonight. Actually, I listened to it because I was on the road, so I listened to it on the way home. Can I say this? At first, Harris started off slow, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to make it or not. And there's a couple of things that I learned tonight. For one thing, I learned that it's no longer black jobs, it's African-American jobs. Another thing is apparently in small towns, those barbecues that you go to, maybe Fluffy or Pearl, one or the other. I'm not exactly sure, but my new saying now is hide your cats, hide your dogs, hide your ferrets. They're eating all our pets around here. Anyway, what can I say about this debate? So Harris did a good job for what she did and what she was up against. She was up against Donald Trump, the human cannonball, and I mean wrecking ball. You talking about wrecking yourself. Trump did that tonight. Now, a lot of people are like, we're doomed. Oh, my God. Neither one of these candidates look good. As far as I'm concerned, Harris did what she needed to do. It sounded very presidential, and it's the typical stuff that politicians say, right? Meanwhile, Donald Trump, on the other hand, he said he wasn't going to prepare for this debate, and it was obvious. He didn't prepare for the debate. So what I basically got out of it was that apparently his administration is going to be all about tariffs, all about racism, because there was a lot of that in this particular speech, and that he tells a lot of lies just back to back, back to back to back to back. And, he's still not letting go of the fact that he lost the election. According to him, he's still president right now. So I'm surprised, when he made that comment to Harris didn't turn around and say, since you're still president, why don't you go call Putin and all them and tell them you're making a treaty? But she didn't do that. She didn't go that far. It didn't take much to get rid of the guy today. I had originally made a preview video of the debate. It's amazing how that preview video is exactly how they followed the script tonight. Now, how do I feel like Harris did on the economy? Because I'm just talking freestyle tonight anyway. Harris did okay on the economy. Would I say it was great? Would I say it was wonderful? No. I think she gave her idea of what she wants to do for America. We've been hearing about the $25,000 credit for first-time home buyers. She also talked about the $6,000 for child tax credit. That's awesome. I think those are two good things. What I didn't hear her talk about was $15 minimum wage. Talk a little bit about unions. And it would have been wonderful also if you're about helping the families, talking about 6 weeks medical leave, on top of the leave that people currently get, 90 days with pay. That would have been awesome, or something like that. But again, that's a little deep. That's really a deep progressive type view of the world that people don't really have. But that would have been great if she had talked about stuff like that. It would have even been great for me if she had brought up the George Floyd bill when all the racism was flying out of Trump's mouth, but she didn't bring it up. She did hit him where it hurts. And she said something else that I said true. If we weren't really want to talk, let's get back to the issues, because there wasn't a whole lot of talking about the issues. That was the one thing I noticed. Wasn't a whole lot of talking about the issues at all. It all became about Donald Trump and him becoming unhinged, talking about millions. His favorite word he doesn't really do math. Like, I don't think he do tens, 20s, 30s, 40s. Anything below a million, a billionaire, that's what a billionaire think. Anything below a billion. So there's always going to be millions of people coming across the board. It's 11 million a month. At this point, I think if 11 million are coming across the border every month, I think America should be somewhere close to a billion people. I mean, that means there's nobody left in South America, but that's beside the point. Um, of course, there's millions of people dying in Ukraine. It's a very high casualty number. As I think they said, 600,000 Russians have lost their lives. So it's about 400,000, 200 to 300,000, 400,000 Ukrainians have lost their lives. Really? Um, Temporary collection loss right there. So anyway, getting back to the main subject at hand, how do I feel like they did? It was impressive to watch a man become totally unhinged and just totally. So the abortion question, he destroyed himself on the abortion. Once he got to the abortion question, it was kind of over with. He got to the abortion question. He was talking about how the Democrats are for abortion even after 9 months. 9 months is gestational period. That's how long it takes for a baby to be born. So after 9 months, there's an abortion. According to him, he means when the baby comes out, they're aborting the baby after it's born. You can't abort a baby that's already born. That would be murder. Um, I don't know where he got that from. He kept bringing it up. It's like he wouldn't stop bringing it up. And then he kept talking about Biden too. Biden's not running in this election, and Harris reminded him a couple of times. She made a couple of great points about the economy. Now, where she got off track a little bit was when they were talking about, of course, Israel, or when she was talking about her changing up on fracking. She went back to it and tried to correct it, but it's too late. I'm not a big fan of fracking, but I know it's big money in Pennsylvania, and that's where she was at. Philadelphia. She was in Philadelphia, so the capital of fracking, because fracking is a big deal up there. What people don't understand about that fracking process is that they use water, groundwater, drinking water. Now that water is polluted or contaminated after they use it to break up the rock, and I guess it's also used in the process of getting the fuel out of the rock, out of the shale rock, out of the ground. So that water is now contaminated. We already have water shortages in certain parts of the country. I just was listening to an article today about a city of Clark, Texas, right, right outside of Houston. The city is growing rapidly. It went from, I believe it was 30,000 people to 75,000 people. They're having to dig a new well. The only problem is the well says the water would be there for 50 years. The issue is not only is Clark using it, but the other towns around that are also growing have already dug into the same underground water. So that means 50 years is more like maybe 20, 10, or 10 years now. So they're running out of groundwater, but we're still doing fracking while we're worried about global warming. And in Texas, biggest problem is that's an oil country. Everything's about burning oil down there. So they're also seeing the hottest temperatures on record. I think the average temperature this year was 118 degrees. Now, that may have been some other time in history, but they said that's the hottest temperatures in history that's been ever recorded in recent history. So global warming is real. Meanwhile, Trump has promised that he's going to build all these coal burning and oil burning plants all over the United States. He's just going to just keep killing us like that, and then he's going to take down windmills. My thing is, we do need to diversify our energy source. So on that, Kamala Harris was right. We need to diversify wind power, solar. We still got oil and gas, but we're trying to cut down on the amount of oil and gas and our dependence on other countries for oil and gas. She tried to talk about that, how they're drilling more than they've been ever drilled in the past. We have more oil supply than we've ever had that come from the United States than foreign countries, which is true. Now the gas prices ain't got much better yet. They're getting better, but they go up and down. They fluctuate with the demand for it. And we got to forget there's a whole war still going on in Ukraine that affects gas because Russia's a big exporter. They're a member of OPEC. The fact that they're tied in with Saudi Arabia on that is a mess. And of course, OPEC likes to drop how many barrels they send out to the world so they can keep their profits in their pocket. And so that becomes an issue for here in the United States because we have to kind of meet the demands in other places. And so then our prices go up too. That's how it works. Right now, we're even starting to supply oil to Europe because of the war and the fact that they've cut their Russian supplies. So that means actually that's more income coming to the United States, right? Right. Um, and I know I'm not really talking about the debate when I talk about stuff like that, but basically, I feel like with this debate, it's a feeling. It's like I started laughing. At first, I was a little angry because the first thing that come out of Donald Trump's mouth is, of course, the whole border thing. The immigrants are coming to this Trump country and they're taking African American and Latino jobs. They're taking those. Well, he said African American instead of black jobs. So they're taking African and Latino jobs. But the problem with that whole concept, and she didn't. This is what made me mad with her is that she didn't come down on that. I know somebody. I know a cousin right now. And she's a manager of a major telecommunication company. I know other people who are doctors and lawyers, and I know black people who, like me, do medical work, right? Or who have been in some other fields other than what he's calling black jobs. This is always about low skill. It's always about insulting people of color. Okay, so not only with the dog comment and insult to people of color, so was this whole thing about black jobs. You know, it's just like low wage jobs. Low wage jobs are entry level jobs. So if you come to the United States and you don't, a lot of people come to the United States. Some people don't have a lot of skills, so or they don't speak English very well, so they enter on the entry level jobs. They may be janitors. They may work um, whatever hard job you can think of. They're out there. They might get in construction. That's where they go. That's a lower level job, but according to them, or they may be even work in the farming industry or in chicken plants or somewhere like that. Oh, they're taking black jobs. Black people aren't running to work, and we like chicken. Don't get me wrong. Black people like chicken, but we're not running to go to a chicken plant to work. We're not running to do janitorial work, even though there are black people who still do janitorial work. Um, I wonder about black people. Say, I see black jobs going out the door. Do you? I mean, I'm hired. I work. I know a lot of black people that work where I work. I know black people who work in other places. I don't get this whole thing about they're taking black jobs. Okay, African. Let me correct that. African American jobs, because that's what he said. They're taking African American jobs now, and they're eating your dogs and your cats and your ferrets. They'll always eat Fluffy. Fluffy the rabbit. Yeah, they eat Bugs Bunny and all that. So anyway, um, again, the debate was interesting. Short on substance. Most debates are short on substance these days. You know, they did talk about some policies. Let me talk about Israel for a second. So both of them are very weak on how I feel about that policy because as a person who is um, pro-Palestinian to a certain degree, um, what do I mean by to a certain degree? So Hamas is the bad guy here. Israel is can be the bad guy in the case of Netanyahu, who, by the way, if you didn't know this, he is actually a wanted felon by the world courts for war crimes. Specifically, this particular war because he's bombed hospitals, shot up convoys, done things that are considered war crimes. And let me tell you how controversial this thing is because this recently happened. So last week, IDF was going into a building to get these six hostages, and before that happened, Hamas decided to kill the six hostages. Among them was an American who was also an Israeli. Well, the IDF this week themselves um, decided to shoot an unarmed American in Israel who was protesting the war. but they were protesting in Israel. It was a peaceful protest. It wasn't like they claimed there were rock throwing. According to witnesses, there was no rock throwing. And in fact, the protest was over and people were getting ready to leave when bullets started flying. So an American who was also a Turkish American, because there's a lot of people in the world that have dual citizenship, died. So an American has died on either side of this war. I mean, on either side of this conflict, however you want to say it. She was not a Palestinian, so she was not, she wasn't working, but she was Turkish, which may mean that she was Muslim. She could be a Turkish Christian. She could be a Turkish Jew. Don't know that. But she was also American, and she was over there protesting the war in Israel somewhere, probably in Tel Aviv or one of the other cities over there. And she was protesting. She died. The other guy, like I said, he was in the custody of Hamas. He was an American. He was Israeli. It's a complicated thing. But at the same time, we're talking about Harris here. Harris talking about we need to do this within the rule of law and all these other things. Meanwhile, you're just constantly giving Israel the weapons to do things outside of what they need to do. So we're spending billions of dollars to drop bombs on people, Palestinians, women, and children who have nothing to do with the war because they're dropping bombs on camps where the refugees are. They're literally dropping bombs on refugee camps. They're occupying refugee camps. They're killing members of the convoy. They also have security in the convoy, like people who are armed, because you're going into places where people are basically in absolute chaos, and they'll just run up to the trucks and try to take the truck. So you got to have your armed guards. Well, they kill them the IDF will kill them. And I felt like Harris didn't really give a good answer on that. She's talking about, well, you can keep demanding something, but if you don't have a plan, like you don't say, well, I'm going to have to tell Israel I'm cutting your weapons off, or I'm going to tell Hamas we're cutting off any of these humanitarian supplies we're giving. We're not telling these people, then the way they feel is like, I can do whatever I want to do. You're just talking out both sides of your neck. And that's the way I feel about Harris and Biden in this whole Israeli situation. Now, when it comes to Trump, his whole thing is damn the Hamas, damn the Palestinian people. We want our hostages back, and we'll make it even worse because we'll come in there and we'll start bombing too. We'll just join in with Israel because we're 100% behind Israel. Israel can never do any wrong because it says so in the Bible. Just get behind Israel. Actually, it doesn't, but that's what we think it says. So I had an issue with that particular part of the conversation. But for the most part, like I said, Trump just destroyed himself. He kept talking. He used billions of these immigrants coming over the border, just taking our country, destroying. I'm going to deport thousands and millions of people. I'm just deporting people. Everybody's a criminal. Everybody of color is the evil guy. And then he says, we're the laughing stock of the world. The laughing stock of the world. People are still looking up to the United States. I just listened to BBC and Telegram the other day, and both of them, people around the world, still looking to the United States for leadership on certain things, especially Europeans. Not so much the Africans anymore, not so much the Asians, because Asians got Chinese to worry about, Africa got their own problems to worry about, and that's where they're getting. They're getting like, we got to deal with our stuff. We glad the United States want to help us, or we'll go somewhere else. That's just the way it is in the world now. But we're not the laughing stock of the world. It's just people are waking up to the fact that they got to understand America ain't always the big guy on the block anymore. And America has to wake up to that, and that's part of the problem. Now, we know that, and Harrison said it that way, but she tried to say positive. She kept trying to say positive and reinforcing things while Trump kept on talking about how the world's falling apart. And it's funny to go look at some of the comments online. A lot of people are just making fun of Trump and the stuff he said. On the other side, there are people who are really saying the world is over because Trump did such a bad job. Oh, the world's over. There ain't nobody to vote for. Ain't nobody. Well, to me, tonight, Harris showed that she was competent enough to be president of the United States, whereas Trump is like, he's just an unhinged, I don't know what that is. And then there was something else I said at the beginning of this. If a boxer doesn't train for a fight, if he sits around all day and eats McDonald's and Big Macs and decides he's just going to lumber around and talk to his friends and go play golf instead of going to the gym, working out and sparring and jogging and getting himself in shape for the fight, guess what happens when he gets in the ring? The other guy, you know what the other guy did? He closed himself off from the world. He trained. He concentrated on watching film on you. He did all the work it takes. He was in the boxing ring. He was in there every day getting his workout on. Gets in the ring with you and knocks you out in the first round. And that's pretty much what happened to Trump. Trump said he ain't had to work out for this. He's got experience. He's done debate after debate. He's never had a problem. He lost the debate last year to Biden. I mean, the last time around to Biden, who this time wasn't quite himself. He's older. He was sick that day. I'll give him that. But he's older. So he wasn't quite himself. He's a slow talking. He's an older guy. And it's tired sometimes when he gets up there. And that gave, to be honest with you, Trump was unhinged then. But the unhinged this time didn't work because there's a person there who's the exact opposite of you. And Harris was that person. And all Trump did was become more and more unhinged as it went along. And, racism flied out. Now, here's where one of those points that Harris hit big on, and it just brought out the full blow Trump thing. So the Central Park 5. Everybody knows about it. If you're black, you know about the Central Park 5. I'm going to say every black person does. But that case was about 5 young men who originally was accused of raping a woman in the park. They were young. They were hanging out in the park, but they didn't know anything about this whole incident that happened in the first place. So they all were forced to plead guilty in court, and so they all went to jail for it for a little while before the real person turned himself in or was discovered, and the woman was found to not really know anything about the 5 boys that she claimed that were responsible for raping her. So they then, pled not guilty, and their charges were dropped. However, Trump continued to campaign against these guys, and they deserve to go to jail because apparently somebody died or something like that, and they said, well, they deserve death penalty. Even after it was over with, Trump was still going on this. So when Harris brought that up this time, he said, oh, yeah, well, they pled guilty. But then all of a sudden they said they were innocent. All of a sudden they said they were innocent. Well, they pled guilty before that, though. And maybe the problem with that was he should have said, well, when I put that ad out, they had pled guilty to this particular crime, and I felt they deserved the death penalty. That's not what he said. What he said was, and it has a different effect, by the way. He said they were guilty. Then all of a sudden, they pled innocent. Like they're guilty. Like they're still guilty in his eyes. That put a ire on me because these guys were wrongfully accused of this particular crime. And it's factual that they were wrongfully accused. They did find that someone else had committed the crime. And he still, to this day, is saying they're guilty. And he got up there on a hot mic with millions of people watching saying, he's still guilty. And here's the other thing he destroyed himself on. I posted this on my Facebook account, so if y'all want to see, I put it on there. Other than the constant pets and the killing the live babies, he said that he admitted that his tariffs caused the inflation. And a lot of you guys who don't really pay attention to politics really well should have paid attention to what he said. He also said something about Afghanistan. I'll talk about that in a minute. He said Biden decided to keep my tariffs. And they couldn't handle it. That's why the inflation got out of hand. Well, you put the tariffs in place, Trump. And those Trump tariffs cause prices to inflate. Cause a problem in the markets. Yep. You admitted that you caused the inflation, that Biden's been trying to fight that inflation ever since. Now, I feel the same way about tariffs. Like, if it's against China, cool. But against everybody else, you need to drop those tariffs. That's, I think they did drop some of them, but there were some of them they kept, like the Chinese tariffs. They kept those tariffs. Now, he's talking about raising them even higher, raising them 20%. Then he had the nerve to say, I'm going to get them to pay for it. Lie number one, because it's the same lie he told about the wall. He said, I'm going to get the Mexicans to pay for the wall. And every freaking idiot that voted for him, okay, not everybody was an idiot, but a lot of the people that voted for him either ignored the fact that that was a lie or really believed that he was going to get the Mexicans to pay for it. So this same thing with the tariffs. He thinks he's going to get the Chinese for it. It's going to help the United States because they're going to get it. Does nothing of the sort. All it is it gets past the consumer so that further increases inflation. That's all that happens to on the tariff. So before I get done here, I in conclusion, I think this was probably the best debate that Harris had. It'd probably give her a bump, maybe not, because most of y'all are already decided or undecided or whatever kind of BS. I really don't understand where people are right now. It's hard to gauge some of y'all. On the black side, I kind of know why people think the way they do, but it's selfish and it ain't got nothing to do with reality check. Reality check is she's a good president. If you want to make it in America, you ain't going to make it under Trump. Not with the one he's planning. And yes, Project 2025 is real. Because J.D. Vance wrote the foreword to the daggone book when he's saying he don't know. And she should have brought that up, by the way. She did not bring that up. J.D. Vance wrote the foreword to the Project 2025 book. So J.D. Vance is one of them. His boy Carson is one of them. There are some of his other cabinet members that had something to do with it. But anyway, I've been talking for a long time. Y'all have a peaceful night. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. You have been listening to Thought You Were Woke, No Speed Limit Podcast.